Sales are very important, mostly because if Shadowlands sold better than Dragonflight, investors will look at the data. I mean, I would hope that they had the intelligence to see that people bought Shadowlands. So, Pride, the problem is that he's comparing release sales numbers. And so those are blind consumers. So you were trying to gauge the number of people that bought Shadowlands without having played it versus the people who bought Dragonflight without having played it. And so in my opinion, a lot of what initial MMO launch numbers tell you is the number of people that trusted you going in. So Dragonflight not selling well just tells me that people didn't trust me going in. And that's very different than Shadowlands, where people thought this for sure will be better than BFA. They've got me really excited. And then it turned out to be a dud.
Quite a few of us are beginning to suspect that Dragonflight may not have sold as well as, say, Shadowlands. But this time, I'm actually not particularly worried about that. And it might sound a little insane, but that's actually where I'm at after taking in all that I can see online.
When talking about Season 1 participation, what I will say is I have friends who have returned to WoW for a very long time away. And I found that a lot of them are catching themselves doing side quests and campaign, which they've never been into, or they've lightly followed when they weren't raiding. Some of them are already leveling alts, which they wouldn't have historically done. And in addition to that, I think a lot of Shadowlands is people don't believe after saying that BFA was going to do it different and Shadowlands was going to do it different. I don't think that Dragonflight had a lot of the base trust. And so part of earning trust is it takes time. And so if that's something that they have to earn over multiple expansions, that's okay.
Piece of evidence, or suspicion number one, is the 30-day free game time promotion. Yeah, it was pretty simple, actually. Quite shortly after the expansion came out, they bundled in a free month of game time with it for new purchases. Certainly felt a little bit rough for some people who just missed out on that, but obviously it is them trying to sweeten the deal. It's an incentive to get people to come back to the game.
It's also seen when you believe that something needs attention. If you believe that you've turned over a new leaf and you think there's a group of people out there that have heard you say over and over, this time it's going to be different. This time it's going to be wildly different. I would never make the same mistakes. And you think those people won't believe you, you might need to sweeten the pot. And so I don't think it's a bad thing. If you're really trying to prove that you're different, this would be the time to do it. This is similar to New World running Twitch drops every time they drop a patch, it seems. Hype is not necessarily indicative of that something's wrong. The idea that I would only get flowers for my wife as a form of apology is a really unhealthy pattern. And so if you only ever get flowers when you've done something wrong, then yes, getting flowers is rightfully a sign that you've done something wrong. But you could also just be saying, hey, we really are trying to do better. And so I think the fact that like they're putting things that were previously available in the store in the new trading post and saying not everything has to be about monetization is all a sign that it could be an improvement.
I mean, even take some of the more high-profile games that have had issues after launch, such as, say, the Battlefield franchise, where they've had decently deep discounts fairly shortly after launch. So, seeing this game time promotion, combined with one other thing, well, two other things, certainly had people a bit suspicious. And another one of those things is the Dragonflight free trial. Now, this is actually something that I think is a really, really good idea. Basically, the free trial would let you start a Drakthir Evoker, take them through their intro zone, and through to the end of the Waking Shores at level 63. And then maybe they put this free trial in to try to get us players who are, you know, the vanguard, who generally have had a good impression, be able to say to our friends, hey, you know what, this expansion's actually really good. Oh, and by the way, look, they just announced the free trial, it's even better. You could see how that would make a degree of sense. Now, the other thing that's kind of a piece of evidence of maybe not the best sales in the universe is no big sales announcement post-launch. They haven't done that this time round. Generally, the way that it goes in corporate communications is that if they bring your attention to something, that means it's really good. If they actively don't bring your attention to something, then, well, yeah, maybe they don't want you to think about that as
I do agree with this, and it's why a lot of companies get away from constantly updating numbers. Because if every time something good happens, you share numbers, that means that every time you don't share, it's bad. The only way to break that cycle is to stop bragging when it's good, so that people know, hey, the fact that they're not saying anything is not atypical. And that's really hard, because your marketing team's like, give us something to brag about.
Another thing then that I should mention is lower Twitch viewers. There's a difference between Shadowlands and now. There's actually a few. As an example, the splitting out of the Twitch categories, because yes, classic is now a different Twitch category to modern. So that is one thing.
Out of curiosity, how is Twitch doing as a whole? Because my understanding is that a lot of November and December has seen a relative decline in Twitch views as a whole. And so I would love to know where this is at, because I heard this same argument being tossed at 14 the other day, and this was a sign that 14 was dead. Keeping in mind that we had a confirmed patch date of January 10th. And so for people to be on January 2nd, like, everybody's quitting the game, why would anybody play this? I don't know, why don't you wait 2 weeks and come back and see if that's really still true? What does that look like overall? You know, like, is this just Dragonflight?
Half the channels streaming the game, which certainly is a little bit spooky, and a bit of a factor there undoubtedly can be the splitting out of categories on Twitch. It's just felt like if they've had a lever to drum up a little bit more interest in the game, they have pulled that lever. So I do feel that for quite a few people, there's this wait and see effect. Some of that is about how much does this expansion really resonate with the Warcraft of old. I would say in some ways yes, in some ways no, and I want to see how they escalate things and if they can pull together a satisfying escalation of stakes. They certainly were not able to in Shadowlands, but when I look at the setup that they've actually woven here, I do think that they've got a pretty good chance. On the other side, of course, is waiting to see if the game mechanics are good. And thus far, I think we really have seen that they are. Fundamentally, I think that is the reason why people have not, perhaps, came back to Warcraft in as super engaged a way as they had in the past, where, I mean, hey, look at the start of Warlords of Draenor, look at those subscribers.
The argument here would be that there's not the same recovery because people are still sitting around and deciding. I think if you have a business that you've managed poorly, through things in your control or not, it doesn't really matter in this case. When you turn over a new leaf, you shouldn't expect everybody to rush to you and praise you. Like, having to earn it a little bit is not a bad thing. So I guess seeing that the sales numbers don't look like they're a record doesn't really bother me. Because what I'm hearing from people who have returned, people who have been around, myself, people who said they weren't going to play and now are, is that they're having fun. And the people who I'm not seeing have fun that are playing are people who are playing it the way they've always played it. They're grinding 11 hours of rares for a chance at a drop. They're picking the single most optimal leveling or gearing method, and they're doing it for 20 hours straight. And the people who are breaking those habits and are saying, I'm just going to do what I want. Oh, that's weird. I got some 350s from this other thing. And I got a 370 from this other thing. And like, I'm trying out these dragon races and all these things. They're all having fun. The people who are just following the fun are having fun. And what that results in is a player base who, every time they get asked, hey, what are you playing these days? They probably aren't as ashamed about playing a game that maybe they're the only person in the room that plays. So it doesn't bother me when I say I play WoW, even though I'm a lot of times in a room, most of my friends played WoW a long time ago and don't anymore. And so in the past, like, it's not what I bring up. It's not the fun or exciting thing to talk about. But right now, I'm like, oh, I'm playing WoW. You should come back. I'm having a lot of fun. It's really surprising me. And they're like, oh, really? Tell me about it. And so I can feel myself wanting to be an evangelist for the game. But not because the raid content, not because, you know, all these things that he's using as his set metrics. Not because it's successful for me to stream it. I'm still way better off streaming New World or Final Fantasy. Not because it's fun to make YouTube content about. I mean, I'm doing those things. But, like, I'm having fun in WoW because I'm having fun. And so I think it's easy to talk about what it's doing well because it's many of those things. So, yeah, maybe you didn't sell a bunch of pre-orders for content that we didn't know quite what the hell it was, and it seemed like it was going to be delivered early. But maybe, just maybe, since the content is good and they have regular updates planned for all of next year, we're going to see the game get to the point where it can pick up more subscribers. And all of a sudden, maybe 11.0 has these great sales out of the gate. But that's in part because all the 10.0 players stuck around and said, you should join me for the next one. You should join me for the next one, you know? Alien coming in with 8 months of support saying that you've been playing Dragonflight, you're having a blast. It seems like Blizzard's been making a lot of good decisions. You unsubbed for 14 as a result, but you may actually return to patch 6.3, which as of this filming is tomorrow. Yeah. I think it's really caught people off guard. I have some friends that they're playing the game differently because they just find themselves having fun in ways that catch them totally off guard.
So let's just say we do a video. Let's just say there's a terrible issue in the game a few months ago, right? We do a video saying, hello, everyone. This is a very large issue. We think it should be fixed. And let's say it does get fixed 3 months down the line. And then we make the other video saying, great news, everyone. The thing's fixed. Look at that. They listened. Aren't we all happy? That latter video will get a hell of a lot less viewership. It'll get less engagement. And this is something that is an inherent problem with modern media. Because while
I like the way Bellier and his team cover a lot of this. This is not a problem with inherent modern media. So there is an idea from well over 100 years ago called yellow journalism. And this is the idea where newspapers can come out and present little or no legitimate, well-researched news, instead looking at eye-catching headlines to increase sales. Exaggerate on news events, monger a bunch of scandals, and chase sensationalism. This has been around. As long as there has been a way to distribute news profitably, the bad eye-catching news has sold better. So I think some of that might be reading in a little much into, like, yes, his space has gotten more competitive. The space that I share with Bellular, obviously he's him and his team have been doing this a lot longer at a lot higher quality than I do. And as a result, feel the impacts of a couple percentage points a lot more. And yes, the total quality level across the platform and the total quantity level have both increased drastically. But the core concept of now people don't want the follow-up story. People have never wanted the follow-up story as much as the next story.
Because I think that while Legion was very cool and did have a lot of content, I always thought its systems were pretty messy, even from the start. I got a lot of flack, during the testing of that expansion or, shortly after its launch for criticizing some of those aspects. But I think that, a lot of us who are suspicious over the fundamental designs of Legion, I think we were kind of proven right over the next 2 expansions. And now
it does feel sustainable. And I think that's the word I used when I was streaming, is that something about it just felt like they can put out this quality and it's done in a way where I believe they can keep doing it. It feels healthy. It feels like something that they could do over and over and over. And it feels like it's done so in a way where I will be benefited as the consumer, and they can maintain this pace in a way that's healthy as a business. I don't know how to quite put my finger on exactly what that quality is, but something about the amount of types of content available and the amount of things I can do within those pieces of content and the pace at which I feel there's more stuff kind of piling on as the Renown system opens up another round of little fun dailies, and they feel really optional, truly optional. They asked me if, you know, you open up your round of Dragonflight dailies, the flying dailies, and you didn't have those. And in the first day, I not only did them on one character, I actually switched characters to do a couple more of the same races because I was having fun with them. But all they were giving me was gold that I didn't need. So I was just doing them because I was having fun. And if another round pops up and if I don't want to do them, I don't feel I have to. And so it just feels like something that like I can maintain and they can maintain. I don't know, it just feels healthy in a way that the game hasn't, for me, in current content, in a long time. I spent BFA avoiding Zandalar. I spent Shadowlands avoiding Ouroboros. I spent it in old content because my choices were either play WoW differently or not be happy. And so I think something about the fact that I want to keep going to Valdrakken and doing stuff on not just my main character, but on multiple characters, there's something there.
Be well built. So ultimately then, I do think that this expansion is not seeing the numbers that Blizzard will have wanted. Add that to some of the preliminary data we've seen from Raid, it does actually look, everyone, like we're in a strange downturn. But I think it's going to be okay because the fundamentals are there. They're just not as exciting to as many.
The lesson learned is do not be so predictable. Do not only use sales when things are going bad, and do not only brag every single time it's good. And don't only share good news, because then when you're not sharing news, people who do support your game can assume that means it's something bad. So regular communication. Naoki Yoshida communicates on Final Fantasy XIV, and he communicates regularly. And as a result, when he comes out to apologize, it doesn't feel like he only talked to us because he wants us to feel bad for him. And he doesn't only share the absolute high notes, so it doesn't feel like anytime they don't market something that it must not be going well. So I think having a cohesive marketing strategy and having a cohesive communication strategy where it's not just this very simplistic of I'll just brag every single time I have a success and I'll just offer discounts every time it's bad. Like, maybe Bellular has the data to back that up. It's definitely a corporate stereotype. But I see a lot of evidence to the contrary. I see a lot of evidence of people having a lot of fun. I see a lot of evidence of people being surprised, people getting into the game that haven't gotten into it in a long time. People sticking around a lot longer than they expected to. And those little grassroots moments are what made WoW successful in each of its successful chapters in the past. That ability to retain the people who are having a good time, and for those people to bring their friends. Because an MMO is never better than when you're playing with your friends. You don't want to just convert a bunch of random strangers. You want to convert friend groups, whole people that can come in and set goals for each other and play with each other. In my opinion, that's where MMOs really thrive. And WoW Dragonflight's doing a lot of that.